Well, all right, guys, let's just jump right into this. Hi, everyone. My name is Simran Miamarali. I am a journalist, a radio and television personality, basically a media personality. And today I have been invited by Policy and Hivas to, moderate this online event where we're going to be talking about data artistry for mental health awareness. This session is going to be approximately 1 to 1.5 hours, but it's going to be packed with a whole bunch of stuff. Just to give you guys an overview, we're going to have a couple of speakers. We're going to have a panelist discussion. We're going to have a documentary, and this is an online event, of course, so try not to sneeze, we don't need our cameras catching COVID. But guys, we're really happy that you guys are able to join us. And I'm gonna kickstart, of course, by introducing Philip, who is representing for Policy. He's gonna be telling us a bit about what's gonna go down. And of course, he's going to give us a brief background about Policy and also invite someone else to speak about Hivas and what Hivas is. So if we can have Philip, please come through and tell us a bit about Policy and why we're here today. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Simran. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope I'm audible enough. My name is Philip Ayazika from Policy. I work as the programs manager, and I've been directly leading this project and working with an amazing team of creatives around Kampala and Jinja and across the country, if I may say. So Policy is a civic tech organization. We are based in Kampala, Uganda, and our mandate is to better public service delivery, but most importantly, work at the intersection of data, design, and technology. So when I say design, that means there's a creative element. So in our interventions, we always try and use, embed the creative element in there, because we know that is one way to get information to the people, but also to simplify data, but also just to improve it, to make sure there's a two-way interaction between citizens and their leaders. We have been working on a project called Data Artistry for Mental Health Awareness, which is why we are here today. And what we've been doing is we've been engaging creatives to understand their mental health. On the onset of the pandemic, this was new to everyone. So I can imagine what all of you have been battling with. But there's been a sector that hasn't, been talked about a lot, and that is the creative sector. We all know, for example, in Uganda, the sector until now is still on the lockdown. So even when we had the release on a few businesses, we know that most of the activities within the creative and performing sector weren't released, and it's been a year. So the question we ask, how are these people surviving? But also, most importantly, how has this affected their mental health? So throughout this project, we've been engaging several creatives, from dancers, painters, musicians, poets, photographers, videographers, creatives generally, to understand how has the pandemic affected them. And today we get a chance to just hear the findings from the research that we did. I have my colleague Sandra Nabulega, who is a researcher at Policy here, who's going to just take us through what are some of the challenges that creatives found, how have they been coping. And then later on, we can get into a conversation on how, from creatives, we can get to hear stories from creatives themselves on how they've been able to stay resilient through the pandemic, and how we can move forward, and how they can, they've been able to, continue doing their work, how they've adapted to the situation. Yeah, so I'm really excited to have you all join us today, and I hope this session can really be meaningful for you, and you can get some value from it. Allow me invite. So on this call we have our partners. So this project has been supported by Hivos East Africa. So I have Churchill Ongere from Hivos East Africa, based in Nairobi. Churchill, over to you if you could introduce yourself and just talk about the resource for Open Mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Philip, and thank you everyone else who spoke before that. I'm not sure I should refer to you using your Zoom names. Some are quite interesting. Yeah, so my name is Ongere Churchill. I'm an artist myself. I'm a researcher and currently a student as well. My interests are in the place of art and technology in development and the improvement of what I call Black futures, because I think the future is Black. Some people usually don't like hearing that, but that's just it. So today I'll speak to you in my capacity as a member of the team at HIVOS. So HIVOS is an international and governmental organization that works for a world where people can realize their full potential, unleashing their ingenuity and creativity to build fair and open societies, right? So the organization has been there for quite some time, since 1968. But the work in Eastern Africa is a bit more recent. So I work under a program called the Resources of Open Minds, which is shortened to ROOM. So what ROOM does is it works to deploy creative energies in the protection and promotion of civic space, basically promotion of human rights. And so within that kind of work, we got to work with policy starting around October last year. And what is being presented to you here today is the result of a lot of discussion between the policy team and myself about what contribution we can plug into the creative space in the region, but also in the context of a pandemic, and also in the context of shrinking civic spaces across the region, right? So just briefly about the Resources of Open Mind programs, it's basically a program that works to support creatives to produce what we call critical content. So critical content here refers to audiovisual content that is counter-hegemonic, which challenges dominant narratives in society about particular things in particular contexts, right? So the project currently has 8 partners it's working with across Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. So in Uganda, we're working with 3 partners, and policy is one of them. In Uganda, we work with 3, and then in Kenya, we work with 2. So the program works to help creatives to become more self-sufficient in how they're able to financially support the work they do. Being an artist myself, I understand how production of content and more so good content requires resources and other angles of self-sufficiency like knowledge, networks, and other forms of resources. It also works to help creatives be more independent. So independence here means producing work without third-party interference. The third angle of work is basically to produce more content. And then the Room project is also particular about helping creatives, not really helping is perhaps the wrong term, but working with creatives to reach wider audiences, right? So the narrative is not of help, but a narrative of collaboration. So we are collaborating with policy, for example, to do work that they're already doing, and not to necessarily help. So that is how we look at it. And let me just be clear about that. The 5th way is through supporting the work of entities we refer to creative hubs. I understand some of you here today are from what can be referred to as creative hubs. So these are basically nodes of creative energy in different places that support creative work. So the project has been there for quite some time now, and I think policy has been there since the beginning. I'm sure most of you have been in this journey with policy before, going by some of the documents that I've looked at from the first phase of the project. But allow me just to share how what we are discussing here today is very particularly important for us now. So in continuing our collaboration with creatives across the region, we are looking at it in a different way from 2021 going forward. So we'd like to explore particular areas, one of which is focusing on the well-being of creatives, right? So well-being here is then how issues of mental health come in, but it also captures issues of self-sufficiency that I was talking about, which refer to resources and all of those other things. And then the other area is helping creatives to working with creatives rather to explore archives more, right? So across East Africa, there are national archive and documentation services institutions. I'm sure in Uganda, there's one, in Tanzania, there's one, in Kenya, there's one. So we want to see how we can work with creatives to ensure that the work that is produced also refers to some of the archives that exist. And then lastly is something that I like referring to as centering the periphery. So the periphery with regards to the creative sector here is creatives that are based in rural areas, right? So creatives that are based in rural areas, in non-capital cities, not in urban towns. So going forward, we'd like to focus more in supporting or working together with those creatives. And I think the reason why we're working with policy now is because the presentation today and the project that we are currently collaborating in features all these three elements of centering the periphery, of well-being in the creative sector, and also exploring archives. And I think I'm hopeful, going by the outcome of this initiative, that it lays the ground for many more people to delve a bit deeper into the issue of mental health in the creative sector, which is something that is a bit overlooked. Not many people pay attention to it, though it's quite important. I think when the pandemic started, there were discussions about how now this is the opportunity for artists to show why people really need them, because people need to be entertained, people need to be engaged, people need to watch things. But then no one was focusing on how is the well-being of these people you are really, pressuring to do online shows. You're pressuring people to do virtual concerts. But then do you consider that they could just be stressed due to a couple of things? So without saying much, I think that's all I can say for now. I'm really looking forward to you colleagues going a bit deeper into the report and saying what it's about and all of that. I've obviously viewed most of what is available by now, but just to congratulate the team at Policy for a good work done so far, and all the people you've collaborated with in creating this output. And I'm hopeful that this document, the graffiti that was done, the videos and all of that are just a beginning in a transformation in how we look at mental health in the creative sector. And my hope is that the learnings from this project can also be taken to other countries, so that we don't have to have people in Tanzania and Kenya again doing similar projects, which I think it would be a waste of time and money. The best way is to find learnings from this report and this discussion we're going to have here today, and then transplanting those in other contexts. Though I understand contexts could have different dynamics, but I think there's opportunity for that. So I'm glad to see colleagues from Tanzania and Kenya in the call. Wishing you all the best. Asanteni sana. And perhaps I need to learn a few Ugandan words by the end of the discussion, Philip. So over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Churchill. It would appear, guys, that Churchill is an expert of rooms, and I'm not talking bedrooms, okay? Though that's on him, all right? I'm talking about resource of open minds. You guys got to open your minds, all right? So right about now, we're going to have a little documentary that, Philip came up with. He actually came up with this documentary with another colleague called Bonita. However, she can't really be here with us. Sorry. As I was saying, we're going to have a documentary played by Philip right now. Philip's going to come through and introduce this documentary. He was initially supposed to do it with another colleague called Bonita, but she can't join us today. So we will be having Sandra Nabulenga and Philip, represent this documentary. So Philip, if you can please come up and talk to us about this documentary, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Simran. Thank you, Churchill, for that, for talking to us. And Churchill mentioned something that is very pertinent about how we always expect creatives to come up and put up the show, but we don't know at what cost that happens. And I mean, this pandemic has really opened up a lot of our eyes, realizing what creatives are going through, even when they have to be the people, they have to entertain all the time, but we don't know what they're going through. So through the project, we've managed to put together a documentary, just having voices of some of the creatives throughout the project. And here it is. It's a few minutes, so kindly just listen to it before we get into the deeper conversation. Thank you. I hope my screen is clear.
What if I started crying? Would my heart stop breaking? What if I caught the rays of a sharp sunrise after a night of consuming darkness? Coronavirus pandemic really had me, going through the motions.
I faced a lot of challenges. One of them was being alone.
Like stuck. And I swear there were moments I started doubting why I even decided to be a writer. I'm like, okay, what am I even doing?
Policy Uganda is a civic tech organization, and our mandate is to redesign service delivery. We function at the intersection of data, design, and technology. As an organization policy, most of our interventions involve using art, so we work closely with creatives. We are working on a project called Data Artistry for Mental Health. In this project, we are using data and art to empower creatives to learn about their mental health. During COVID, we noticed that the small community of creatives that we were working with over time were struggling. As you know, the creative sector in Uganda isn't well streamlined, and most creatives, I think the biggest percentage of creatives don't have stable income. 1 in 5 people has a mental health challenge. It can be anxiety, it can be stress, it could be depression, it could be loneliness, it could be grief. During the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the creative tended to have sleepless nights. Some of them drew away from their own friends. Others were grieving for their lost friends during the pandemic, the friends that had committed suicide. In this project, we were able to train them and also create more awareness on mental health. For example, we were able to differentiate for them the difference between stress and depression.
I feel like this is a good space for especially the creative artists, because mental health affects someone's creativity.
It's my first time to have a mental health meeting with people. Basically, it has really lifted a whole load on me, because there are lots of things that we, the creatives, really feel about ourselves. It has really opened me up to feel better about myself and also the people around me, encourage them, improve their lifestyle, because, confidence and self-esteem are part of it. I really want to come back for this, because it just made me realize very many things around me as a creative.
And these had tremendous effects on their lives. However, there are mechanisms that creative artists shared that they used during this lockdown to be able to go through the mental health challenges that they encountered, which included talking to friends in the same category.
I called friends 24 hours a day and it was not working. Until I said to ride and go and see my friends, where I stayed for the last month of COVID.
Others also resorted to other mechanisms of coping up with the challenges that included increased levels of smoking. Very few of them sought help or went to mental health experts in the health sector for support. This was largely because most of the health facilities at that time were focusing on COVID patients.
For a country like Uganda, where we have less than 100 psychiatrists in the country, serving a population of over 42 million people, you can only imagine how the mental health sector looks like.
The districts which were in our study, that is Kampala and Jinja, the mental health experts are mostly not available, meaning even if the patients went there or the creatives in this context went there, they would not easily find the services available.
What this project is doing is we are empowering creatives to learn about mental health, but most importantly, we are supporting them to put in place social support systems that are going to help them handle mental health issues. So we are working with communities like Vodo Art Society.
My name is Wamala. I'm an artist from Vodo Art Society. We work with policy to talk about mental health amongst creatives. The project in Ginger, to me, it has been an experience, a learning process. I have gotten to interact with people of different understanding, people who are seeing things in different perspectives. I appreciate the fact that we have actually learned to collaborate with other people and execute work in the given time. As far as the murals go, we think we have planted a seed. mental health as an issue amongst creatives and the people around the creative has been addressed. The messages are out there and they have put an impact, and I feel like we have achieved what we wanted.
The project I was doing was about mental health with a simple theme called Reflections. My sketch was of a woman looking in the mirror of her own self, but in that mirror it gives her hope of tomorrow. It doesn't have to be always looking outside, but it's better you always look in the mirror to see how it can be helpful in your life.
My mirror was a comic mirror that was talking about some child who was a creative and was the other side of the mother was perfect, and to the dad side was discouraging, and the child shows fear. Then to the other side, the child is relieved mentally by the mother.
As much as the entire world was affected, creatives were also affected, but no attention was paid to them. Creatives on this project learned that actually even just being open-minded and actually paying attention and listening to someone else's challenge is a way of supporting them. We also taught them that creating support groups is one way to actually prevent mental health challenges.
We are going to make sure we instill in these communities mental health champions that are going to be able to handle mental health challenges as they come in, but also create a referral system around them that can support them in a case that a community gets to have someone who has a serious mental health issue. They should be in position to first of all provide first aid support, but also moving forward to be able to do a referral at a cheaper cost or reduced cost. So what we have done, we've worked with several mental health experts that have helped us put in place structures that can support creatives respond to mental health.
As much as we are all going through a different situation, one creative is suffering from anxiety, the other one is suffering from depression, but they have overcome different challenges, and during these times, they can always exchange their knowledge.
Creatives suggested some of the measures that could be taken up. Some of them included doing more than just creating, that they could come up with different activities, selling like clothes and other materials, generally doing small-scale trade that could sustain their lives, because one of the things that led to mental health challenges was financial constraints. Using creative arts to help restore but also create awareness on mental health among creatives. And these included paintings in terms of mural that speak on mental health issues, music, dance, poems. These were thought to have a very healing effect on creatives, even other people in the community that could be experiencing mental health issues.
We've been able to partner with some very, very talented artists who have produced some amazing work that will speak to the message. Anyone who sees the work will be able to know what exactly we're trying to put across, being that mental health is a challenge, and in order to overcome it, we need to work with each other as a community, help one another.
The mural I worked on, we sat as a team, thought of the idea, and we really thought that would work with the community. It's all about someone who is walking away from his past, from his worries, his fear, and focusing ahead to something else. It's on Ginger Main Street, where everybody passes. I really feel that whoever will pass there will really get caught with the message that is there.
We also realize that as the community, we have judged them, we have put them aside simply because we, the society, have a different term for them. And so I would want each one of us who's out there to remember that creatives are part of us. They're in this community because we love their art. So when we see them fall down and crumble, it should not be our time to laugh, but it should be our time to pay back and help them, support them, and lift them up. And acceptance is a key factor in actually healing your heart, your mental health, and your well-being at large. So while you are out there and thinking you are a creative, your mental health is a key factor to your productivity. So take care of your mental health. Remember, our differences make us beautiful pieces. And so your mental health is your priority, my priority, and your neighbor's priority.
We believe as creatives that use their minds to create, I think it's important that they have their mental health
The rays of a sharp sunrise after a night of consuming darkness. Maybe today the puffs of smoke will cease and I will breathe. Do you see the courage in my eyes to keep trying? I think today there is a hope in my soul that everything will be okay. I can feel a creation blossoming above my inhibition.
Darkness, found my way through the darkness. Let your light shine, let your light shine, let your light shine through the darkness. They say you a queen or a diva, telling you the truth, you a goddess. They say you a king or a leader, but you know they scared of your greatness.
How could they say there's really something wrong when all I ever see is you do it on your own?
Yes, Philip, a very, very, very beautiful video. Now, of course, there was a couple of glitches here and there, but guys, let's just talk about for a second there. Did you see me in that video? Hey, really strong messages coming out from different creatives, as you guys. So creatives do acknowledge that there is a gap, there is a problem with mental health being, something that people take seriously in terms of creatives and artists and, people like us. But luckily enough, we have, people like, we have companies or groups like Policy and Hivus that are taking on the initiative to, do something about it, to make it known, and also not just make it known by creating awareness, but also giving people a platform to talk about, how they feel as creatives, to share their stories. And beyond now, okay, I'm not going to talk about it all, but right now we're going to have Madame Sandra. I don't know if she wants me to call her Madame, but we're going to have Sandra Nabulenga come through and talk to us about the report that you guys have just watched. So Sandra, please, if we can have you come through and talk about, so you don't have to talk about how good I looked in the video, but you can talk about the serious stuff that we're here for. So let's have Sandra come through.
Thank you so much. My name is Sandra Nabulega, and I'm going to be talking about a few findings from the research study, some of which have been shared in the video. So I'll start with sharing my screen. When we started out on this project, we had 3 objectives in mind. One was to establish the effect of COVID-19 lockdown on the mental health of creatives. And the second one was to understand creatives' coping mechanisms to the mental health challenges during COVID. Then the third one was to understand how creative arts can be used to create awareness on mental health. We collected data in December last year using 8 focus group discussions across Kampala and Jinja, and we brought together 120 creatives living and working in Jinja and Kampala, and were in 18 years and above. These creatives were selected with help from local partners like Vodo Arts, Fatish Arts, to mention but a few. Creatives included dancers, musicians, writers, DJs, etc. So, and the data from the focus group discussions was coded to answer the 3 objectives of our study. So this is what we found out from the data you shared. So some of the few mental health issues that were reported being faced during the COVID-19 lockdown included loss of sleep, anxiety, anguish, stress, depression, and hopelessness. Majority of the creatives reported that all these pressure source. And so let's talk about the effect of the COVID-19 lockdown on the creative mental health status. So creatives reported getting mental blocks, since most of them drew their inspiration from the surrounding environment. So during the COVID-19 lockdown, there was nothing. They were not allowed to go anywhere. So some of them couldn't create anything because they lacked inspiration, which created a sense of hopelessness. So others mentioned lack of a consistent flow of income. It's a year now and the arts and performing sector is still under lockdown. I mean, nightclubs, live concerts are still under lockdown. Yet some of these creatives were earning a daily income. So when they shared a few points about coping mechanisms, and this is what was shared. Some mentioned talking with people around them, family, friends, fellow creatives. Others mentioned creating art pieces that spoke to their situation. Others mentioned resorting to drinking and substance abuse. So majority mentioned that because of the stigma related to mental health and the fear of being judged, they don't seek help when they have mental health challenges. So we need a lot of awareness around mental health. Then when we talked about using artistry to create awareness on mental health, majority agreed that yes, art can be used to create awareness. I mean, we've seen art being used to create awareness on challenges like teenage pregnancy. Why can't we bring it into mental health? Then they shared a few recommendations, some of which are in the process are being implemented right now. They shared, the first recommendation was about creating a safe space where creatives come together to share about their mental health, learn from each other and accept each other, no judgments. Then they shared about creating a creative artist peer network of trained mental health experts for basically the creative community. Then they talked about being creative and flexible, finding new ways of livelihood. Creative mentioned selling secondhand clothes right now to cover up for the lockdown in their creative sector. Yeah, thank you so much. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Right, guys. So according to Sandra's research, you guys can definitely tell that creatives have been suffering a lot, like heavily. But of course, Sandra did, the bare minimum of just asking people what their stories were, and of course, recording her own analysis. But let's hear from the people themselves. We've got a couple of creatives over here in this conversation. We have a panel of 5, and these guys are going to be talking about their own experiences and how they have dealt with COVID and, the lockdown. And of course, having participated in some of the sessions, like Sandra said in her, her research findings, that there actually was sessions where we came together as creatives to talk about the challenges that we were facing because people don't want to listen to us. So we'll listen to each other. So in my panel list, allow me to introduce my people. Yes, finally. Let's get to, we've got Shiko Kihika. She's an art enthusiast, not an art. English is not my first language, okay? We've got an art enthusiast called Shiko Kihika. Then we've got Tristan Zittoni. He is the director of Vodo Arts Society, and he's also a journalist. He is a creative and artist in general. He's a guy with dreadlocks and a lot of brains. Moving on, we've got Maria Naiga. Now, Maria Naiga is a mental health practitioner. She's the mental health expert, the person who comes through and tells us, hey guys, I feel like you guys can do this. I had to change my voice because she's very soft-spoken. Then of course we got creative blogger and activist, the person responsible for holding up signposts by the road and shouting heavily, Tusime Tutu. Yes, the girl who does the poetry, the chick who's doing the poetry, Tekamu feeling and passion. Yes. Then of course we've got Mariam Wasemba, a documentary photographer. Now, this is someone I know is bare talented. This is the person who bees up late nights and then, editing videos and whatnot. So, guys, that's my panelist of 5, and we're going to be listening to them and their stories. We're going to start off with Shiko Kihika. So let's have Shiko Kihika come through and basically talk to us about what your experience has been, COVID time, lockdown, how that has affected you as a creative and as an artist. Let's hear from you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. So my name is Shiko Kihika. I work with an organization called Tribeless Youth based in Kenya, in a county, rather now a city called Nakuru County. It's amazing seeing how creative struggles are interconnected across board. And just watching that and watching the interviews, one thing that came to mind is that I wish we documented our domesticated struggles as much, because when COVID first hit in Kenya and we went for the first lockdown, a majority of our artists were rendered homeless, and we had to figure out how to contribute and make sure they have shelter, at least by the bare minimum, and at least they're able to afford food and everything. This was one of the biggest triggers of mental instability. And I would say it's quite interesting, and it's quite a struggle to see how majority of the artists didn't have a place they could go to, or rather, like someone has said, that they needed to look for another business. Doesn't this tell us that art has not been considered a sustainable business for the longest time? And for me, I feel like maybe this is a call to action on how we can work towards making the livelihood of an artist stable enough, and how we can actually work towards making art a business, basically. Why I'm saying that is because we are going to be rendered jobless for the next long time until COVID goes away, which we don't know when. Kenya, we are staring at another lockdown, so might be actually worse than it was before. So it's quite amazing that I can see how Ugandan artists came together, and some of them had different businesses. A majority of our artists don't have the businesses. A majority of our artists did not have a place to go to. But maybe this is one of the key things that I'm learning today, and I should go and take it back to our creatives and tell them this can be a thing to sustain you. But I acknowledge and appreciate policy for this good job that you guys have done. Just documenting these stories, and at least even linking these creatives to the mental health services that I know. I'm not sure if in Uganda they're as expensive, but in Kenya it's quite expensive to get a counselor or a therapist. So this being said, there's a saying in Kenya that goes, or other people say, "Mwanaume ni kuvumilia," like a Black man specifically does not complain, does not speak of their problems. And I see this as a step to a step towards making our men realize that speaking out does not make you less of a man, but speaking out actually creates more opportunities for you. And I'm glad to be also a beneficiary of Room, and knowing that through this project we're able to speak to more artists, create spaces for artists. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm proud to be part of this process too.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Shiko. I personally miss Holly. I love hearing from people from Kenya, and it's true, by the way, what they say. The struggles of Kenya are the same struggles of Uganda. I mean, our countries are literally sisters. But guys, let's hear from Zitoni, Tristan Zitoni. Please come through. He is the director of Vodo Art Society, and he works really closely with Quality. It's actually in his studio that we tend to have most of our sessions. So let's hear from Tristan Zitoni.
Hi guys, thank you, Sim. So fortunately, by God's grace, we had an opportunity to be looked up by policy to come up and partner with them on this project. It was a very, very big turning point for us. Uh, we've been in the art business for some time now, but we've never really had the opportunity to work with people other than ourselves, other than the artists that we work with within our group. So this particular project was, I must say, a new one for us, and yeah, it was amazing. We got to meet some incredible people, the likes of Tutu, the poet, Simran, who showed us that there are more ways to which our art can be explored. Because I mean, art. When you think about art, the first thing that comes to mind is something a feel good tool, something that you might not take too seriously, something you'd want to have in your house for aesthetic value. So to be able to use our art to actually pass on and send a message that has value was really a big plus for us, especially talking about things like mental health, because mental health is a very, very, very big challenge. I think it's mostly a big challenge because a lot of the time we don't even realize that we have this problem. It's something that someone will tell you about depression or about having anxiety, and then someone is going to say, "No, you're just being snobbish," or "Be be be manly," or "Why are you giving in to such emotion? Can't you just be like ordinary, normal people and deal with issues practically?" So socially, I think there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of highlighting the extent to which the problem of mental health goes. And like some of the speakers said earlier, we hope that this documentary or this program will open those doors and open those conversations amongst creatives and amongst the community. Because the creatives alone, as much as this program is centered around creatives get their satisfaction, they get their validation from the community that they serve. So we are part of communities. So part of improving our mental state is getting us in sync with the communities in which we live in. So throughout the pandemic, you find that we had some challenges. For instance, as Bodo, I think during the wake of the pandemic, we happened to lose our studio. We got kicked out of our studio by the landlord, who had got someone, of course, with like more money to cover the rent and stuff. So it was a big setback for us because we are here trying to figure out how to run an art business. You've been struggling to stay afloat because you're doing a very unconventional business with really no working business model. So you're basically on your feet figuring things out. Then a pandemic happened. 2 weeks or a month into the pandemic, they're telling you where you think your things are being safely stored. You're being kicked out. So you find that in terms of business, I'll talk about it from a business angle. Art and business is one of is a very big gray area. And for anyone who is a professional or who has a hobby that is very hard to generate income from will definitely feel a certain level of stress and pressure. So throughout the pandemic, we fortunately, as a community, had some opportunities to get together. We had some breakthroughs. We were able to get some work with some corporations like New Vision, where I think I was just really God's hand at work, where we were able to get a group of artists come together. Fortunately, we were able to convene in a house that was given to us by a friend as we were doing the project. So we had the ability to be each other's keepers. I remember some of the nights would come back from work and then you'd have a session where you just break down the day, and then we actually in that short period that we were together in that space, we created so much work together and built up on so many ideas that actually haven't even been realized up to now. There are so many that we haven't finished them. So my point being that ability to come together that ability to be in the same space where you have like mind is very, very important for our health and development. So when we have issues with COVID that limits your movement, limits who you interact with, how you can relate with people, it becomes a bit of a challenge. So these are some of the discussions that we can have around how to make meetings like this happen frequently. As a result of this program, we came together with policy to have monthly sessions, even if it's small groups of individuals that come together to just talk about whatever they've been going through throughout the week, throughout the month, just to maintain a flow of communication. And I think if we can develop some more programs like this, would really go a long way at solving some of the challenges we face with mental health. Thank you. Back to you, Sims.
Yes, guys, you've heard from Zitoni, and I think it's actually quite relatable. So many people have been losing their jobs, losing studio spaces. Tutu want to mute her mic, but we move regardless. These things happen, and it's really good to know that we as policy, like Shiko said earlier, that in Kenya, it's very expensive to be able to, afford, therapy. Therapy sessions are mad expensive. So in Uganda, we have Maria, and Maria is actually, she's quite helpful. This is someone who put money aside and came through to actually work with people and help people. She cares more about your mental well-being as opposed to how much money she can make off you. So with that, guys, we're going to have Maria Naiga, our very own mental health practitioner and expert, come through and talk to us about how she pretty much has been pushing. I mean, this is the one person I know who's always consistent. She's always consistent. You'll always find her there ready to talk at whatever time. So let's have Maria come through and talk to us about her experience with creatives and mental health.
Thank you so much, Sima. Oh my God, I didn't know I was that amazing to you. I love you too. Thank you so much. First of all, I am so grateful for being part of this venture into bringing creatives together. My name is Naiga Maria, and I am a community psychologist and worked on this project with policy. First of all, while we were carrying out the data and while we were visiting the creatives, I realized that during the pandemic, so much was going on for them. And apart from the normal things that we hear, depression, anxiety, and all those other things, we saw that there was an increase in drug use, in alcoholism. This increase comes about because so many people are feeling lonely, they were feeling so isolated, they were feeling like, what the heck, why don't I grab my drink and enjoy my life? But in the long run, the addiction was actually growing. We also found out that so many people lost their lives. Some people committed suicide because of what they were struggling with. I remember in one of the sessions where we were together, someone shared how they actually realized that later on, a friend of theirs that was struggling, that they were not finding, had actually committed suicide. Creatives tended to withdraw from society because, first of all, I blame us as society members. We have labeled creatives as useless people, people that are not worth our time. So first of all, I blame ourselves as a part of a community. We have pushed creatives far from us. It's like we have made them create their own world, yet they're part of us. During the pandemic, it became worse because we all kept on pushing them further away simply because we were not connecting with them. In terms of, I remember I had a neighbor who was a painter, but because of the fact that he knew people would still look at him as a nobody, he tended to be more locked in his house than actually coming out to, associate with us more, have a conversation, and to take off his chest. So there's so many things that affected the creatives, but in this way also, there are things that, for example, I feel like some of these things affected the creatives more. Their mental health was probably more affected than maybe anyone else's. I am not saying that people's mental health was not affected, but imagine a creative, up to now, bars are not open, studios are not open, there are no shows being held. The tourism industry, where they would probably sell their paintings, where they'll probably sell their craft, is also not stable. I'm imagining them struggling more, because if I was working in an office and the pandemic affected me, then some people were lucky to still have their jobs. They would still work online. But holding an online concert is very expensive. So some of these creatives were not able to do that. Imagine I make my beautiful paintings at home and I have nowhere to sell them because of the lockdown that was happening. So I'm imagining creatives' mental health was way more affected in one or another. And then I also realized, sorry, I jotted some of my points. Most of them depended on their talent. You depend on your talent, but then you're not putting your talent out there. You have the songs, but you're actually not producing the songs. You have the paintings, but you're not putting your paintings out there. You have your poems, but you're actually not putting your poems out there. I remember Seema talked about how they got the block. You can't create any more content because you're already fixated. You already have content out there, but it's not going anywhere. So you feel like, oh my God, then what's the point of creating more if even the literature that I've created is not going out there? And then I've also realized that the stigma around the creatives that already existed, we already looked at them as useless people, worthless people. And then the pandemic came in. This is another stigma onto them. So they already had existing stigma, which was already affecting their mental health. And then a pandemic comes in and it tops on. I mean, imagine a glass that is already full, and then you keep on pouring water inside that glass. It means that the glass is already full, but then the water keeps pouring out and pouring out. So they have no space in their lives to actually put in the positivity. They're already filled with a lot of negativity. And then, I mean, we should realize that the available resources as us as a community, because when I say us, I mean, I am part of the problem to the creatives, because I'm also part of the community. As much as I want to be part of the solution, I cannot ignore the fact that I'm also part of the community that pinpoints, oh my God, can you imagine? Why does he have all those, those dreadlocks? What are they for? I am also part of the people that will probably say, drinking at this time of the day in the pandemic, so while I want to be a solution, I cannot ignore the fact that I am also part of the community. But how is the community and I and the creatives, how are we going to come together to see that we reduce the mental health problems, we reduce the instabilities, we reduce the challenges that we are facing? I think number one is that we should come together. We should stop judging the creatives for who they are. Just like they will not judge me for becoming a psychologist. I should not judge them for becoming poets. I should not judge them for becoming painters. I should not judge them for becoming who they actually want to be, because this is one step away from pushing them away, but it's a step of me bringing them closer. I am so glad that when I met the creatives, I did not stop at just talking to them, but I got to know them. I got to interact with them. I got to appreciate, their talent. I mean, Tutu is an amazing poet. When she grabs that mic and she pours her heart out, I am actually inclined to think I have been there before. It's just that probably I didn't see it then, but now when Tutu is talking about it, I connect more, and it makes me think that I am not alone. Tutu is a creative. If I connect with her in the poems that she actually creates, that means we struggle with the same problems, but we need to come together as a community and as creatives to see that we actually put these problems aside and work on our mental health. I think we should come up with support systems. For example, I am working with the Voodoo Society to say that at least once a month, at least, we get creatives come together. They talk about their mental health. They talk about how they're dealing with these challenges. They talk about how they're actually opening up their arms to support one another. So I think, and then we need to check on one another. I may not be in the creative world, but hey, Sima, if I see you on Instagram and I send you a text, I'm like, hey, are you doing great? And then respond to me, that is one way of saying, oh, well, she's okay, that's great. If I am able to text my friends, why not check on them who are actually not my friends before? We go on social media, and instead of actually being positive to what people post, we tend to be more negative. Someone posts of how they're struggling, and then you comment, man, we're also all struggling. I get it, you're struggling, but what about share with them what are some of the things you've actually been doing to go through this struggle? So if I posted, hey guys, I'm struggling, I can't sleep, what can I do? And then a negative person comes onto my comments, just grab a bottle of vodka and drink to sleep. And then a positive person actually comes and tells me, oh, by the way, me, if I want to sleep and I'm struggling, I count from 1 until I can't count anymore. I'm having two variables of two different advice, and it's up to me to actually listen to which advice will work for me. So at the end of the day, if I grab the bottle, that's my opinion. If I actually listen to counting, it's also my choice. So I think we should listen and work together as a community to see that we actually bring togetherness as a way of fighting the stigma that is already existing among creatives. And finally, I know the creatives that I actually worked with know some of these things I've shared with them. How can we improve our mental health? How can we support ourselves through this pandemic? And I think one of the things should be, we should develop coping skills, positive coping skills. I just want to shine a little light on this. There are negative coping skills and there are positive coping skills. For example, excessive use of alcohol is a negative coping skill to a problem. But the fact that that drinking too much can actually damage your liver, can do whatever it does to you, that means you should learn to be able to adjust to new coping skills. For example, if you're a painter, paint. You're an artist, create. You're a musician, sing. These are all positive mechanisms that will drive you from worrying to actually being more creative. Let's give each other something. Let's share with one another. For example, I remember during the pandemic when I actually my food was low, and I kept on asking myself, Kati, now where am I going to get food? How am I going to survive? And my neighbor, they had someone drop by, bring them food, a lot of matoke, and they called me like, hey Maria, do you mind if we give you some matoke? I am not a fan of matoke, but trust me, in the pandemic I became a lover of matoke. So at times, giving brings us together. Giving something to someone has a way, it creates a bond of, oh, I can actually talk to these people, I can actually share with them. Let's also learn to pay attention to the present moment. Sometimes we dwell so much in, oh my God, tomorrow, what will I do tomorrow? What about next week? How is everything going to be? Oh my God, my life is so bad. My life is miserable. But then in the moment right now, there is something good happening. Sima is talking to you. Tutu is actually presenting a poem, and you could actually get in the moment of the poem and enjoy that time instead of worrying about how next week is going to be, how next month is going to be. Because currently, I know people, we are all worried. Everyone is thinking, after the 42 days, are we going under another total lockdown? Actually, some people have already insinuated this week he's going to say there is a total lockdown. Now, imagine if we are worrying about what he has not yet said. How about when he actually says it? Then what will we do? So let's learn to concentrate in the present moment. And the other thing of how can we improve our mental health? Let us not shy away. People that have worked with me know I always, but let's not shy away from asking for help. People are going to judge you. People are going to look at you like, oh my God, you're a man. How do you cry? How do you go telling people you're struggling with this? People are going to look at you like, oh my God, you're too gorgeous to be crying about anxiety. You're too beautiful to be crying about depression. Honey, those are their comments. It is your health, your mental health. And when you're going down that drench, they're still the same people that are going to laugh. You get my point. So let's learn to open up when we are struggling. I know that I struggle with grief and I struggle with loneliness. And when I start seeing these symptoms coming up, I work on them. I try to involve as many people in my life as I can. Talk to a friend, reach out to a friend. And I know at times I actually call people to pretend like as if I'm checking on them, but in actual sense, I'm actually checking on myself. I am talking to someone so that I am more calmer, So let's learn to take sleep more seriously. I know people battle with sleep. People will be like, man, me, I can even have the entire day without sleeping and I'm okay. I am one of those people. But later on, I realized it's draining. It consumes my brain. It's so draining because the next day I am actually literally not thinking straight. I will call A, a Z, an A, a W, an X, because my brain is already fed up and tired. Let's set realistic goals. Creatives have a way of setting goals. Next year, my album has to be out.
Maria.
Yes.
Maria.
Yes.
I need to cut you off there because you're answering questions that I have for you in the Q&A session. Okay?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. Like, you're saying it all, and I'm just here like, hey, content ideas are going.
Okay, but anyway, Sima is going to have questions for me, and I'm pretty sure there are Q&A questions down there that I would also love to answer.
Definitely.
But seriously, let's treasure our mental health. Let's end the stigma around mental health, just like we ended the stigma around HIV. Even stigma around mental health can be ended, but also let's end the stigma around creatives. I mean, not until I met so many creatives in one room is when I actually realized that, I think I've been judging these guys too much. I think I've been underestimating the power of creatives too much. So let's end stigma around mental and stigma around creatives so that we create a more impactful, world at the end of the day. So back to you, Sima. I can't wait to answer the Q&A. And
right.
I hope I said something great.
You did. All right. Thank you, Maria. Thank you guys so much. You guys have heard from our very own Matoke loving, psychologist up in this building. First of all, Maria always gets my name wrong. The name is Simran, but she always calls me Sima. I don't know who Sima is. Lakini, it's okay. I'm now Sima because Maria said so. And honestly, with that kind of energy and vibe, do you really think you can tell Maria something like Ebu usinite by my name kama haujui? Kenyans, you guys have heard from Maria. What do you think about accent? Your accent mumeisikia? Hey. And of course, Maria said some very, very important things, but I kind of have, I have selective hearing. So for me, what I heard is, as creatives, munayo could stop answering messages from people who want free artwork and instead start talking to other creatives about what they're going through. Okay, I know we spend a lot of time having those people in our DMs talking about, "Unaweza kunichora picture for free? Can you do this for me for free?" Like, stop replying messages to people who want free artwork. Start working with creatives who understand exactly what you're going through to work on your mental health and help you out. Now, guys, you guys finally understand why I say we should vote for Maria as president. She's just got that energy, you know, heavily. Maria for president. But guys, we're gonna move on to another powerful voice. We've got Mariam Watsemba, you know, a documentary photographer. Yes, this is someone I've been really looking forward to listening to from. So yeah, come on, Mariam, let's hear from you. What do you have to say? Mariam, your microphone is muted. You have to unmute your microphone, Kwanzaa. We can't hear you.
I spoke a lot English to myself. I feel bad. I spoke a lot of English there. It's too much trusted English, but yeah, thank you. And I was in much English I spoke. I was commenting about your energy in the room and appreciating how your energy is so good and vibrant, and it's making the meeting worth it. But also, I would like to begin with giving a very huge vote of thanks to Policy Uganda for the work that they're doing with creatives. I've been listening to what everyone has been saying and comparing it to the experiences I've had at a personal level in my journey as a documentary photographer in Uganda, given that it's a very new niche in the industry. Let's begin with photography. We're still trying to get it to be accepted as a profession. People still think of it as a hobby, as a hustle, and things like that. And now when it goes further to documentary or photojournalism, it's even such a baby still. So from my own personal experience, but also from experiences interacting with colleagues in the industry, with friends, another day we shall talk about it at the level of gender, because it's already enough as photography still not being a profession, enough as documentary being a very young field. But now it's also another level when you are a girl or a woman in the field, away from it. So the gender is like a conversation. We need a whole other meeting for the gender aspect of it. But from what I've been hearing, it got me thinking about the perception of art and creatives in Uganda. When we start from there, for me, speaking about mental health for creatives is not a pandemic thing. Maybe the pandemic woke the world up to think about us, or the pandemic got people thinking, but how are these people going on? But before the pandemic, generally in Uganda, let's say for the past 5 years or so, you know, we were raised knowing that you grow up and you go to Makerere, and then you become a doctor, you become a teacher, you become an engineer. You don't do art. Who does art? Whose child goes to university for 3 years to do art? Like, you're already a failure. So to start with, choosing the path of art itself is, in Uganda, when you've been raised in a typical Ugandan society, you are choosing, like we said, your sisters. I don't know if my people in Kenya can relate, in Nigeria, they'll tell us if they relate. You are starting a journey of battling so many things and breaking so many boxes and stepping on so many toes. So your first encounter is going to likely be opposition from the people that you care about the most, maybe your family, your friends. Your colleagues will seem to be going ahead. Why? Because you're venturing into an industry that is still virgin. Now we've explored it, but we're really still quite one-dimensional. When you look at art spaces in other countries and spaces in the world, they're really up there. So we're really still at the grassroots of shaping this art thing and the creative thing and trying and turn it into a profession where people can earn, where people can reconcile passions and business, understanding how business comes into art. So we're still at the basic level. So being at that level means we are not moving at the pace that the normal professions are moving at. So you find that 3 years out of college or university, your friends are up here and maybe you're still here. But the thing that people do not get about art and creativity is that it's not just a thing you wake up and say, yo, let me go paint. No, it's something that is on the inside of you that if you do not express it, you'll not have peace, you'll not be happy. So it's something that is bigger than you, that is beyond you, and it needs to come out. Not bringing it out is going to cause you lots of thoughts and, depression and things like that. But bringing it out is also going to, it's also like both options that you have are hard. Keeping it yourself is going to make you feel like you're sitting on your potential. Deciding to go after it, you're going to have to fight so many people because it's not a legitimate career and things like that. So for us, depression or mental health is something that starts with you from the moment you decide to say, I'm walking this path of being a creative. You've opened your door to it. The only thing that ironically I'm being grateful for is a pandemic, because with a pandemic, it's normalizing this thing. It's opening people to realize there is a problem here. It's opening organizations to say, what can we do about this? Because before the pandemic, for example, before this meeting, I talked to a couple of people in my field in photography, documentary, and whatever, and they tell you, man, I can't tell the difference between mental health and whatever. I don't know if I'm stressed or I'm not, because I just know I have bad days, and when a good day comes, I celebrate it when it's a bad day. So you find that for creatives, this has become a way of life so much that people cannot tell the difference. So maybe with the pandemic happening and now such conversations happening, and maybe we can have more partners on board. For me, firstly, it's the gratefulness, the fact that the conversation is now happening, but also that what is getting out there, but most importantly, that creatives are being involved. And now, maybe what's the next level after this? The next level, I think, should be to continue even post the pandemic as much as we're doing it now, of how do we create a space or a possibility where creatives are aware of what's happening to them. Are you depressed? Are you having mental, are you having mental issues? Are you mentally strained? What is going on? How do you reconcile your passion and your business? Because also when you have a passion and you keep going after it, but you're not making money out of it, it's going to stress you. Not only does it stress you, it proves all the people that doubted you in the first place that they were right. For you choosing this path, you're choosing failure. So for me, I think moving forward, is to continue normalizing these things, but to continue engaging artists, creatives, to help them become aware, come up with programs that create a sort of continuity in terms of learning, exposing artists to become self-aware, what opportunities are available for them. These conversations are normal. It's not a way of life. It's not normal to wake up and have 3 days of, I'm in the house, I'm locked up, I'm not talking to people. And then the next day, my energy is high and things like that. It's normalizing those kinds of things and people knowing that. So for me, it's education, because this mental health for artists and creatives begins from the time they decide to walk that path, and not go after being an engineer or a doctor after 4 or 3 years in campus. It starts that time. With the pandemic, by the time the pandemic has happened, people have been used to that way of life that they do not even know where they're going through a mental health issue or they are not. So for me, I think it's let's continue with these conversations and create more awareness and help people understand and make the differences and know what is a normal of life and what is not. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Maria. It's safe to say you captured that beautifully because you're a photographer. You captured it. Get it? No, I should stop. Okay.
I get it.
Picture that. Guys, allow me to say my puns. Okay. All right. So, Kenyans, mukisikia a beep beep kind of sound, please don't think there's a problem with your phone. Kuna machines in Uganda we call yaka machines that's responsible for electricity. So if you guys heard the yaka machines beep beeping in Maria and Mariam's backgrounds, there's no problem with your phone. It's just the machine going beep beep. But I like the fact that she has found light at the end of the tunnel, and she's spoken about how we can look at COVID. Whoa. We can look at COVID from a whole different perspective. I personally really appreciate that. Lakini guys, it's really it's starting to get to me that all the ladies we're hosting right now, they woke up earlier than me and chose to actually do something presentable. These guys wore dresses. They had time to wear lipstick. Angalia me, I look like, I don't know, something that sleeps under your bed. Lakini guys, we're going to have Sime Tutu come up next, and She is a poet, a blogger, an enthusiast. She's actually an advocate for a whole bunch of things. Like I said earlier, this girl got me to go and hold signposts by the roundabouts, talking about a cause that was so deep into her heart. So, guys, without further ado, Tutu Tusime.
Hi guys. First of all, Simran is, I think, the funniest host I have ever had. Real talk. Your jokes are killer. Plus, we talked about this last night. I don't know, we're talking about how we're going to do this webinar. I told you I was going to come up and show up, all dolled up-ish. Anyway, so my name is Simran. Can you guys hear me though? Just to confirm.
We hear you too.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I'm not exactly really good at Zoom, which is weird. But so my name is Tusime Tutu. I am a writer and a whole lot of things. According to Maria, I'm also a good poet. And to keep up with that persona, I am going to recite a very short poem right now that I tend to just go back all the damn time. Okay, so enjoy. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do. I'm a weathering rock eroding one flood at a time. My soul drowns in uncertainty every morning the sun doesn't rise. I'm never quite there, never quite right, never quite happy. That's it, that's a poem. Okay, what am I talking about? Oh yeah, my mental health as a creative during lockdown. So what happened was when we did go on lockdown last year, I didn't really mind it that much because I am the kind of person who actually wants to stay in her room or just, throw solo music parties at like 3 a.m. So it was okay for me. It didn't scare me that we were going on lockdown until, until things really got out of hand. So well into lockdown, I was writing. Good thing is I actually got a writing gig right before we went into lockdown, which was great. So I was writing, but the issue is, as Maria mentioned earlier, sometimes you create stuff, and there's lockdown, I think, presented a lag in time. It sort of slowed down time. So when that happened, I would find that I have articles and pieces ready for publishing that haven't even been, touched on by my editors and stuff like that. And I'll get to a point and like for a long time, I'm not creating because I can't create more work when there is already work that I haven't. And so you find that the avenue that would in fact help me deal with my mental health is not there because I'm not writing, which was really not easy to deal with. And I spent a lot of time in bed and a whole lot of those things. But then the thing that I found that helped me was actually, I'm not sure if people can actually see that. That's my wall of sticky notes. And there's like a whole lot of things on there. Be intentional, given a chance. Some of the messages are just, it is what it is. Anyway, so I decided to start that wall, a sticky note wall, where I just would put my feelings there. And I think it really helped, to be completely honest. I think it really helped because by the time we got out of lockdown, it felt like I had actually processed these things outside of myself. And I think that's the most important thing I can tell any creative. You have to process it out. Even if it's to yourself, like no one comes to see this wall, but I still wrote it. There are private messages to myself, from myself. It's a whole thing. Anyway, so that became something that I could do to sort of keep myself sane, which wasn't easy. And I realized actually, I had friends who were actually also going through the same shit, right? Like I would call a friend
And she would be like, man, I haven't written in, I don't even know how. And I have a friend who's like really good at writing, but she would tell me she hasn't done anything like that in a while. And the other thing that really affected me was because I'm so used to talking to people, and for some reason, I'm the girl who, listens to people's issues, like laid out on me and stuff like that. And in doing that, ironically, I actually also process my own shit, which is, needs to be unpacked. But there were no more conversations like that. So it became a real challenge. But beauty of it is there is always light. I mean, there is always light at the end of the tunnel, even if the light is very, very, very dim and pale and flickery. Anyway, so then this program came through, right? We started to do, we did the creatives, we started to do this mental health for creatives thing. And that was amazing, actually. It was about like getting to talk with these people and share experiences. People were going through the same shit, and just like being in a space where you can talk to people who were, real talk. This is where I met Simran, who has become child. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is this experience doing this mental health for creatives has in a way become a therapy sort of ground for all the creatives that were involved, and helped us to take it out there. Because sometimes I go to these meetings and I hear someone's story and I present that in a poem, and just not because I'm trying to copy someone's story, but because I do feel like that. So the things that I write, my poetry, which I don't share that much actually, help me to express my feelings, to just like get it out of my system and just like face myself. Here it is. You're down, you're stressed, you're anxious about this, you are so scared about something. And if I then put that in a poem, and then sometimes when I share this poem, someone texts me back, is like, oh my God, I relate to this so much. And I'm like, oh my God, me too. Anyway, so in doing that, I have managed to create a sort of community, like a free therapy session, really, because if me and my friend are talking about a poem that I wrote about, this experience that we are going through, we are, therapizing, we are counseling each other. Anyway, so then what else? Okay, my advice to each of us right here is we keep saying that we need to speak up. And that's great, but I also need us to be the kinds of people that people can in fact speak to, because you're not going to be vulnerable to people if you're not the kind of person someone can be vulnerable to. Vulnerability is a two-way street. You don't just fall in and decide, you know what, because your friends are not, they're not your official therapists, right? You're not paying your friends to listen to your shit. So you need to also meet them in vulnerability. While you're being vulnerable, allow them to also be vulnerable to you. It'd be a shared experience. Don't be the kind of person who just, you're always telling your friends how you're dealing with this, you're dealing with that, but you're not the kind of person who your friends can actually talk to, because that is hypocritic. In my thinking, that is hypocrisy. Yes. So yeah, and my final thing that I would say is to be intentional, right? It's not as easy as it sounds, being intentional, but I think when you wake up every morning, and some of us do wake up late in the afternoon, but whenever you wake up, even if you wake up at night, when you wake up and you're like, you know what, I am going to do this. And you might really lag, because there are times I get up and sit in front of my computer and I'm like, okay, what are we doing now? What are we doing? But then you keep taking those steps keep being intentional, keep making work, even if it's just for yourself, even if it's sitting in your phone and it's sitting on your paper, but you've created that work. And in creating that work, you've processed some of the emotions you already feel, and you're already creating a portfolio anyways. When you do get gigs and you have that, things to put out there, which, in the end will bring you money, which is something that a lot of creatives struggle with, because if you do not have a portfolio, if you do not have created work, what then do you need? What do you want people to do for you? You're a creative, you're selling yourself, you're presenting yourself as a creative. Create. Oh, okay. You meant to scream, but that's it. That's my whole point. Be intentional about the things you do and trust yourself. And ciao. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you, Tutu. Thank you so much for that. You're literally a huge bowl of energy. Like, definitely all the energy's there. So guys, because of time, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to cut the question session really, really short. So I'm actually just gonna ask each of the creatives one question, and then I'll ask Maria a question that she hasn't already answered, if there is any, because she spoke about it all. I'm just gonna go through some of the questions that were asked in, the chat earlier. I'm gonna start by asking Zitoni. I hope he's still around. Yeah, Zitoni, if you're still around, I need you here, please. Yes. So Zitoni, my question is, how have you used your art to express your emotions and positively impact people who are dealing with negative mental health in relation to the lockdown?
Well, the mere fact that art is very subjective. Art is very subjective, yeah. So you have to say that I've impacted 1, 2, 3, 4 people, 5 people would really be a lie.
Yeah.
But I believe that every interaction, every opportunity we've had to put out an image, a bright concept, anything that makes anyone feel anything, any emotion. It can be happiness, it can be sadness, it can be wonder, it can be shock. All that, I feel, is how we've been able to play a positive role in this journey of mental health. Ours is more a tool of creating awareness, as you've seen in some of the murals that we had the opportunity to create. And then also in our everyday interaction, we try as a company, as Bodo, to pull in as many creatives as possible and create a value system, because the first thing to a healthy being is value. Once you can have value within yourself, value spreads then to everyone that interacts and interfaces with you. And that's what we hope to achieve every day that we wake up, do something that will change the world and make it a better place.
Sawa, thank you, Zitoni. Asante sana. Shiko,
Karibuni.
I have to ask, do you know of any instances where creatives around you are also battling with the same problem, and how do you suggest they can be helped?
So yes, I know. I know a bunch of creatives who are struggling with different mental illnesses. I would call them that. For us, what we've done as an organization is partner with an organization that has therapists, but we've also introduced an aspect of livelihood, and like we did a lot of structural changes even with the way we deal with our issues. Apart from just working with creatives in terms of advocacy, in terms of waiting for their gigs to happen, organizing gigs and everything, we opted to have something we are calling our hangout. So our hangout is sort of a small kind of structure where we organize on what we want to do. If it's farming, what we want to do, and then we can tap into there's something in Kenya we call the Government Affirmative Fund. So we're helping them create proposals that can go through the government structures, and at least they can get some amount of money that can help them creatively start off different businesses. There's a space in Kenya. I know, I'm not sure if in Uganda you guys have tapped into Twitter Spaces as much as Kenya. So we've been hosting a lot of Twitter Spaces and Twitter conversations. And I know we once partnered with Policy also in a tweet chat where we discuss deeply on creatives and mental health. The reason for this is because for the longest time in Kenya, we talk about mental health, but we never really break it down into different thematic areas. And I would say what someone out of outside the art industry might not be going through the same kind of challenges with someone inside the creative industry. And they said something very interesting. Learning to say no to people who think they can get your work for free. We have a bunch of those in Kenya. Someone tells you, "Oh, I want you to come and do," like today in the morning, someone wrote a very huge email and asked me to do a whole consultancy on digital marketing of a company as an in-kind offer, and then they'll give me the platform, they'll market me. And for once, I just had one response, and I told them exposure does not pay my rent, and I need to be paid so that I'm able to pay my bills. And just understanding that it's been a struggle just getting artists to sit and understand that my work is worth money and I need to quantify it. And
You've muted your
if
microphone.
I draw, sorry for that, someone called, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So even if you're drawing a very tiny bird that is worth money, it's worth your time. You have to equate your time to money. And I wish we knew this earlier. I wish we knew this before the pandemic. I wish we could have saved better earlier. And one thing I'm telling the creatives is that this is a wake up call. And it's for us to understand that this is the more reasons why artists need to join circles. It's more reasons why artists need to start investing their money into long-term investments that can actually feed them even beyond their art. And we also need to define our art as a business, as a job, so that we can change the mentality that art is part-time. The mentality that art is part-time is what is causing us to say, oh, now that there's a pandemic and I cannot host gigs, I need to go and start selling secondhand goods. So what happens to your art? Your art is your source, is where I keep telling people your art is what waters your soul. That is where your passion is. That is where your love is. Then let us learn how to turn our passion into our survival, into our finances. And then let us also become each other's support system. It will be amazing to learn more from different spaces and understand what different artists are going through. And it will also be amazing to share what other artists on these sides are going through.
All right. Thank you so much, Chico. We seem to have the same curtains. I don't know why, but that's really cool.
That's amazing.
Curtains, like, wow, we have the same curtains. That's not why we're here. Tutu, let's speak to Tutu real quick. Tutu, how do you advise creatives to best handle and keep their mental health in check during this period?
I think my biggest advocacy has always been about being vulnerable to yourself. That is where you have to start. And I know we keep saying speak up, speak up, speak up, but it starts with you. Like even when you're behind a closed door and you're really, really struggling, have you managed to do this? Go stand in front of a mirror and just tell yourself, you know what, dude, you're really, really struggling, and try to sort of psychoanalyze yourself, because it can be done. Your mind has the ability to psychoanalyze itself. And when you do that, then you find places where you can get further support, you know, things that you can relate to, things that can help you sort of process those feelings. But you're not going to just start speaking up and telling, you know, people that you're struggling, that you have no money, you feel really blocked, writer's block, or you have like you're really sad and anxious about things, about the way of life, about what's going to happen to you and whatever is going to become of your life. And I think when you face yourself and accept yourself that you are in that position of struggle, then you can in fact go ahead to speak up and find avenues that can actually help you speak to, I don't know, Maria, text someone, but until you've internalized it yourself, you won't know how to spell out what it is you're actually going through. And that, I think that's the one where the big, that's okay. That is where you start to take care of yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Tutu. Thank you so much. All right, Mariam, let's hear from Mariam. Mariam, I'm going to ask you a question that's been asked by Don Zain Juma in the comment section, well, in the chat section. And earlier on, you spoke about how there's a bit of a stigma and getting acceptance in terms of, you being a female photographer and, working with people around you. So how do you think that stigma can be handled? I mean, Juma wrote a really long paragraph that I honestly cannot read. I've tried to read it, but I just had very many English. So how do you think we as artists can support artists who are fighting or battling this stigma, of being accepted in society by, family, friends, and also breaking down this concept that, art is just a vibe, it's just for people who have nothing to do. How do you think we can break that stigma?
So firstly, I am very glad that we have successes so far. We have some really good success stories of individuals that have done it. Today, among the attendees, I've seen Badri Katumba is here. He's a fellow photojournalist. Badri, thanks for tuning in. So we do have some stories of people that have done it, and it's inspiring. But also the other thing that we cannot ignore is the fact that the arts and the creative is an industry that is on a scale of 10, let's say it's getting to like a 3 in Uganda in terms of growth and being something that is acceptable. That is why I love people that are coming up, people like Policy, Motive, people that are doing something about it, organizations, civil society that is coming on board with the art spaces. So why I need us to appreciate the fact that in Uganda we're at a scale of 3 and we're growing is that we still have a lot of spaces to explore. We have people who are now able to express their passions. I want to do this, I want to do this. The other person has done it. But when you start doing something, you start finding out, okay, it's more than passion. The passion is expensive. It requires me to have equipment. It requires me to be educated, to educate myself on this and that. It requires me to be in networking spaces, to know which websites are working for me, which ones are not working for me. So there is a whole process. So when you talk about the stigmatization and family not accepting it and having to go through society, let alone that's for everyone, but also as a woman and things like that, it still goes back to the fact that the art and creative industry in Uganda is like at a 3 out of 10. And of the 3, like we're just limping to get there. So there is still a lot to educate people about. And I wish I could say it's just going to be easy in like Kaya or something. But like any other profession that gets to a point where it's respected, it goes through processes. And I think we cannot cheat the process of getting there as an industry, but that process can be made better. And so for me, one of the ways that this process can be made better to get people to accept us is firstly to know our own values. What are our values? What are we putting out there? How are we putting it out there? Are we being authentic? Because also one of the things, I think this is such a big topic, one of the things that is also a very big cause of mental health issues among artists is imposter syndrome, where it's hard to be yourself because when you get out, you see someone else doing a certain way and it seems to be working for them, and you have this pressure because you need to prove to your family that it's working, you need to prove to society that I'm not foolish or wrong for doing this. So you try to be like someone else and you spend a year of being that, and there's no depression, but it's more okay, maybe there is, but it's really acute spending your life trying to be like someone else because it gets to you. So answering the question of stigma and stuff, I think I wish I could have one answer of like, this is what we should do to end the stigma. But the truth is we have a whole process to go through to develop our industry to a point where it is appreciated, it is respected as a profession, such that when in 20 years or 30 years, when a 20-year-old gets up and says, I want to do painting or I want to be a photographer, society can nod their heads because it sounds like I'm going to medical school, I'm going to do this. And that is a process that can be cheated. It can only be made better by having these conversations, but also educating people to normalize the fact that the world is evolving and it's changing, and the job market is changing, and there is more jobs coming up that were not there before. 20 years ago, we did not have social media managers as a job, and now we have it. So I think it's a process, and it cannot be done by one person. It's all people feeding, and it's the artists feeding in by doing our best, putting our best foot forward, putting authenticity forward, producing work that makes people think twice. I think someone's doing something good here. I think this is important. And then we also have other people coming. In my personal experience, when I started, my family was a bit shocked because you're an S student, how are you just going to take photos and this kind of thing? But years down the road, seeing the projects that I've done and all, it's now, my daughter is a photojournalist. She's in the newspapers. Have you seen the paper today? Have you seen this and that kind of thing? So the acceptance starts coming around. So it's up to us to put our best foot forward. But while we're doing that, we are also giving people like Policy Uganda and other civil society reason to support us and support our process. And eventually, I do believe with the way we are moving, we are going to get there.
Thank you very much. I actually really like that answer. Have these conversations, normalize it, and eventually acceptance it's gradual, so it will be accepted. Thank you very much, Mariam. Now I have left the toughest questions, of course, for Maria, because why not? So, Maria, you know very well, you pretty much came from the science part of it. You worked with the enemy, and then you came to art. You started accepting arts. So my question for you is actually, it's really not that hard, but basically, how can creatives and non-creatives manage to co-educate and support each other during this tough time? Because for a fact that as much as creatives are underestimated and people don't really want to have these conversations with creatives, we still have to come through for the non-creatives, because let's face it, art is food for everyone. Art is something that heals everyone. So we creatives, if we stopped creating, honestly, I feel like scientists would just, they would lose sanity. They would lose science mentally. So how can creatives and non-creatives manage to co-educate and coexist during this tough times? How do you think we can help each other out?
I think the first thing is, let's end the stigma around creatives. Someone has actually explained someone has given the steps on how to end stigma. And then I think the other part is let us as creatives also give. There's some creatives that are giving doubt, that they're giving the community a feeling of they are not worth it, they're not worth the time, or because of how they behave, how they portray themselves. Like Mariam has talked about the imposter syndrome. So I think number one is let creatives come up with ideas that they feel are suitable for their community as creatives. You remember Tutu and Tristan, everyone that has taken part in this project, on how usually I usually ask them, how do you think the creatives will feel? How do we do this? So I think the question is also about, can the community find out from the creatives, how can we as the community, like Juma had asked, how can we as the community work with you? How do you want us to treat you? How do you want us to be able to communicate to you what suits you in terms of tackling mental health? So at the end of the day, I think for me, I will zero it down to understanding one another, because if we have a relationship from us, the community and the creatives, if we have a good friendship, that means we are able to to deal with a lot more than what everyone else thinks that we are able to deal with. For example, I think so far so good. Me as part of the community, I have come together with Voodoo Art Society. So at the end of the day, we are inviting creatives to come in, and I am thinking the next time we're having this conversation, invite a non-creative. If you feel comfortable with a friend that you think they need to hear the same information, they're battling with something, they may not be creatives, but then you feel like they're battling with something, bring them along. Let them also hear the same information that you're hearing. So at the end of the day, someone goes back there and says, oh my God, did you know that creatives are doing this to actually take care of their mental health? So that it gives them to understand that even if they're actually not creatives, they can also be part of the community where creatives are, and it helps them to improve their mental health. So I think
thank you, Maria. I'm so sorry, but we're running short on time. But thank you so much. Guys, we have a group on WhatsApp that's got, you know, Maria and policy guys and pretty much everyone. So please reach out to Philip and ask him to send you a link to that group so that you can join and we can take our conversation there, because most of us never sleep. We're always, you know, chatting. But guys, thank you so much for coming through for this conversation. I personally have had an amazing time. Let's hear back from Philip, who's gonna wrap this up and you know, send us off really well. But this has been a really good conversation, guys. Thank you so much for coming through and participating actively and staying for as long as you have. Let's go back to Philip.
Hi everyone, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation. I really hope everyone has enjoyed. Personally, I've enjoyed it, and I think it was great listening to the creatives and giving us, you know, live stories on how they've managed their mental health throughout the pandemic. As we close up, I want to read something for you. Chimamanda put out a blog yesterday about, and there's something that was saying fame taints our view of the humanity of famous people. But the truth is that the famous person remains irretrievably human. Fame does not inoculate the famous person from disappointment and depression, and fame does not make you any less angered. So what I just want to put to you guys is that most of us on this call, especially those that are non-creatives, we look at creatives as celebrities, people that are supposed to put up the show. But these guys also are battling certain things. So one of the things that has come out in this conversation is how the community has played a greater role in sort of, bringing about mental issues with creatives, because the community has not been supportive enough. There's been great conversations, but also I picked up a few things like, can we listen without judging? Can we avoid confrontation? Can we help? Can we ask how we can be of help to these creatives? So I think this has been a great conversation. We have a detailed report that has been put out by, someone has said celeb Zitoni. Anyway, we have a full report that has been put out. Please follow Policy, that is POLLICY on Facebook and Twitter. And also head to our YouTube if you want to watch the full video, the documentary video that we played here. But also head to our social media if you want to read through the full report. And those that are interested, I think I have most of your emails for those that signed up. I'm going to be sure to share the full report and the documentary. And I hope we can take on the conversation. Thank you so much. I understand there's a WhatsApp group that if anyone wants to be part of that WhatsApp group and have conversations, we're also going to be having several other conversations that can happen on WhatsApp through WhatsApp chat discussions, where we have 1 hour that is dedicated to mental health, considering that now maybe because of the pandemic we can't meet in person. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone that has managed to be with us. We've gone over time and it's been about 2 hours, but thank you to everyone that stuck around. I think it's safe to say that this meeting is closed. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Philip.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bella ciao, bella ciao.